I'm going to play the bridal game. I'm going to go old, new, borrowed, and blue. I'm going to start with a new one. Nobody, well, Eleanor Wilner has seen this, but she's like my big sister. Nobody has heard this, including my wife. It's brand new, so let's try it out. And for those of you who are writers, that's why we do it, isn't it? You need to bring the work out. You can learn more by reading a poem to an audience and watching them than you can get from 9 editors turning it down with pink slips. You know? So, but this is a sort of an important little poem for me. This has been just such a dreadful year for us. And your time's coming. When you get up this age, death, 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 and more death. Jan and I had a long conversation one day, and we're both sick of it and think we ought to do away with it. And we decided we're not going to talk about death. Let's talk about something important like overpopulation. But everything I've written this year has either been about death or another requiem for myself. And I was in Boulder, Utah, a couple of 3 weeks ago. Nano was there as well, and something happened, and this is what came out of it. So this is the first non-death poem I've written in all of 2018. So let me try it out on you and see what you think. Rain Obod, an Ars Villanelia of sorts. Boulder, Utah, October 2018. A taciturn and sodden day when words traipse and stand apart in galoshes, agape, muttering unwillingness to join and distaste in all concepts for belongment, refusing allegiance to stanza or paragraph, when intermittent clusters form, no conjoining or gathering, a seeming falling away from any broken trail where language can rise, separating from the body to the lift of delight. Today, only the insolent downward tumbling toward the imagined desert labyrinth of evaporation, desiccation, mud stuck and estranged between image and word. He removed his glasses, closed his eyes, and lifted an open hand, begging alms. After a small eternity, in the reimagined world, a hummingbird hovered an inch above his palm, a shimmering rainbow, the miracle between storm and night. Well, that's my newest, so there we are. Now, here's where I want to go next. I am being sponsored by Steve's just brilliant gallery. I didn't know you had this in you, guy. This is, Judith has lifted you by bootstraps up above your own shoulders, man. Yeah, but also by Nano and the Sugar House Review. And for those of you who don't know this, well, I feel a little bit sorry for you. This is possibly the finest literary magazine Utah's ever seen. I'm not sure I can name one better off the top of my head. And I think it's one of the finest small press magazines in the United States of America. There's some brilliant work in this thing, not including mine, but I did have one in the last. And so I'm going to read a couple of pieces, I guess, out of here. I work every year at the Cliff Notes Writers Conference in Boulder, Utah, first weekend in October, and I give a year-long writing assignment to the people there, and we'll come back the following year and see what we've got and then do it again. This time it was searching for epiphany, and I asked them to go as far back as you can in your memory. You're going to work in the best library this world's ever seen, your own mind. Go back and find you inside your mind. Find that moment as far back as you can go when you didn't know it then, but you found out later, my life was changed by that incident. Follow me there? Well, this was what I wrote for that. I write a poem to sort of present what I want them to write for the following year. So this is for the Sugar House and for Nano and for others who have been in this just very fine magazine. 4th birthday, Panguitch, Utah, 1948. Kodak moment. It has an epigraph from another poem I wrote a long time ago. The process of life being a passing between dream and reality, and the older I get, the less sure I am which is which. Sunlight and tall yellow pine, sound of laughter, which he already knew to be the gateway to Protestant sin. A human chain calling him out. Red Rover, let Davy come over. The burn and blood smear as his front tooth stayed in Mother's glove. And her firm whisper, don't cry. This is the happiest day of your life. So, he learned to pretend to forget to remember the collision of green grass and blue sky, neck snap and the plunge into linked call over arms, face bash and clenched glove. August, early red-banded woolly worm staring eye to eye, and his first secular musical remembrance. Cousins singing, happy birthday, dear Davy. Beneath it all, the summer wind hiss. Don't you cry. And then, later in this wonderful magazine, a poem from my beloved colleague, Danny Dubrasky. And Danny, prophets don't get any honor in their own country. Danny is hot right now, and you ought to be very proud of her. She's doing a reading, She's doing a reading at Ken Sanders' bookstore with Nancy Takas, who I think is the most underrated poet in the Southwest. She won the Juniper Prize this last year. Well, Nancy won the Utah Book Award. That's no small potatoes. Well, she's got 2 poems in here. I chose to read this one. It's a sonnet, or it's 7 couplets. I'm going to call it a sonnet, and if you choose not to, well, tough. Yeah. Petroglyphs at Parowan Gap. Parowan Gap is one of the probably 7 holiest places I've ever been in my life. I adore that place, and I was lucky. I got to go with an elder, and a Paiute elder, and he basically explained to me. But she's not gone in that direction. It's a beautiful portrait of the Gap. All things crisscross before they disappear into silence, throbbing between jutted rocks. A trucker drives on a road perpendicular to the wind gap, visible for a moment and then gone. A Pontiac gunning from the closest town swerves toward me, honks. The men inside spin away, laugh at my startled jump. I give them the finger. Our sacrilege adds to others that break the reverie surrounding eons of layers that streak rocks covered with graffiti. Names and dates trespassing a map carved 5 centuries ago in sandstone. Notches, ladders, squares filled with dots, a sun circle of concentric rings that gives passage to the next traveler. If we live in dreams, our eyes opening and closing to vistas we create, unless we step into someone else's meditation. Then which ancient one dripped this intersection of lines? The distant trucker, the men, and myself, wandering past a length of road into spirals so carefully engraved. Our crossing notches a groove in my palm, a new map I now see in my hands. Isn't that gorgeous? Beautiful poem. And then one more, Nano. I didn't know Nano wrote. I knew he was a brilliant editor. Obviously, he chose one of my poems, so he just. But he's got a wonderful book here, Engine of Color, Motor of Form. I devoured that the 2 nights ago when he gave it to me. Read it and just thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a wonderful collection, and I don't know this artist, although I understand he works at SU. Andrew Marvick. Do you have any of his work in here?
Leda has his work in her gallery.
Okay. Then, and by the sounds, then you know him. Well, Nano and Andrew put together this chapbook where they work together, the paintings and the poems, and they're just marvelously done. My favorite is another sonnet, and if you deny it's a sonnet, I'm going to say, well, you don't understand your own work, because it's not only the 14 lines, but it's on page 14. And so I see that as a deliberate irony, so that you can feel brilliant when you understand that. But I'm going to hold the book like this. This is the painting he's working with in this poem. It's the cover painting. Waylaid. May is playing tricks again. Winter rears like records skip in deep grays that break suggestions of spring. Each year does this, but we hold fast our rancor. Each year we're going to leave. Have to leave. Must. And it's true. As we watch another year of tulips bloom, then, battered by snow, slump into slush, I cough complaint and scrape ice, infer nothing from the honk of unseen Canada geese overhead. Again, return too soon. Summer is coming with its snow melt floods for July, then its months of barely a drop of rain. I clutch my defeat with weak-kneed order, and you hold my collapse at the door. Wow. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read some works from, a couple of the new books. This is my most recent, Bluebonnets, Firewheels, and Brown-Eyed Susans. This is a book I really did work on for about 14 years, off and on. I had to interrupt it when my big brother, best friend next to Jan, Bill Clefcorn, died, and he came back and insisted, "By God, Lee, won't you write something significant? You owe me a book. Now write a book." So I wrote Last Call for him, and he came back and helped me with it along the way. And then I came back to this book, and it was waiting for me. The voices here were just inside the head. And so I don't know that I ever spent longer on a book, and I know I never had more fun writing a book than this one. This is one that had its roots in New Iberia, Louisiana, probably about 20 years ago. I met one of the characters in the book. Here, let me get that for you. This is the true story of Susan Birchfield, Deputies Thibodeau, and the Texas rat snake. Now, these poems take place, the book's set in Texas, 1948 to 1962. 48 when we moved post-Texas, and Dad got a job as the vice principal of the high school girls basketball coach, history teacher, and school bus driver. And Victor Huffman at the mortuary tried to get him to, help with embalming. So But this goes back, this is a 1959 poem. And it's a 5-act play. And hello, Scott, how are you? My eyes, now that I've taken these off, I can see that far back. So I'm going to read this one for you because it's 5-act play. And I really did have that Shakespearean structure of exposition, complication, crisis, falling action, denouement. We'll see if it works. And it may not. Susan Birchfield said, the move actually went better than she expected, even though it took 432 trips between the old house and the new one on Silk Stocking, 9 calls to the bank, 4 to the preacher, 1 to the JP, 3 to the Josies to reborrow their big truck and trailer, and 2 to the marriage counselor. Dennis said before he'd move again, he would burn the house down and start over with or without insurance. Monday morning, him back at work, her time to just walk through and look it over by herself with a cup of coffee. She felt good about everything, almost to the point of forgiveness. Said she only meant to look through the window, not at it, but right on top of the drapes, sprawled like a 3-ton housebroken cat, the 6-foot snake, proud to be an adopted Birchfield family member. She remembered saying out loud, I can live without that. Said she did not spill 1 drop of her coffee on the carpet or table. Set it down, turned and picked up the phone, called the sheriff's office. Sheila, she said, I need some help here at my new place. Sheila said, is it a disturbance, ma'am? Susan said, yes, I believe so. Ma'am, is it an intruder? Sheila said. Susan said, oh yes, I believe so. Are you in any danger, ma'am? Sheila said. Susan said, I might be, but not in an immediate manner. Sheila said, ma'am, I'll send Deputy Sheriff Thibodeau as soon as I can find him. Susan said, start at the coffee counter at Adolph's and ask Laura if he's there. Sheila said, yes, ma'am, I'll do just that. Yes, ma'am, Deputy Sheriff Thibodeau said when Susan Birchfield opened the door after he knocked. I understand you have a disturbance on your premise. She said, yes, I do. He said, ma'am, I understand you have an intruder here at your house. She said, yes, I do. He said, I be here to be of assistance. What can I do to help me? She said, you come right this way. Took him into the living room, pointed at the window. He looked through it hard to find out where it was hiding, whatever it was, until she put her hand in front, pointed his face up. Said it took about 9 seconds of looking to see what he was seeing. Said, Holy Mary, Mother of God, blessed be the fruit of the looms on baby Jesus. Pulled out his pistol, hollered, you stay right there, don't you move. She yelled, no, put that gun up, don't you shoot that in my house. Said his eyes could have been milked if you'd grabbed and pulled on them. He was a scared. Said, it's a snake up there. She said, yes, it is. Can you get him down? He said, no, ma'am. I shoot him off there for you, me. I don't touch no snake. It'd be dangerous. Stood right there in that room like Lot's wife. Looked at that snake for a long time sleeping on the top of the drapes, pointing his pistol at it. She telling him 4 times, don't you shoot that gun in here. You hear me? He said finally, you got any telephone? She said, yes, of course. He said, I need to use it. Maybe I call my cousin. He been to SNCC school. He know what to do. She dialed the number while he held the phone with one hand, pointed the pistol at the snake with the other. Said, Leroy, you get in your truck, drive yourself right down here to the new Birchfield place on Silk Stocking where you see my patrol car park. Bring you snake catcher. We got us a problem, Houston. Mrs. Houston, Assistant Deputy Constable Leroy Thibodeau, certified in snake removal at your service. How can I help you? Howdy, y'all, Cousin Jodine. Howdy doody, Leroy, said Deputy Thibodeau. My name is Mrs. Birchfield, said Susan. Leroy, get in here and looky, we got us a problem, Deputy Thibodeau said. You got your snake stick? Right here, said Leroy. Walked in past Mrs. Birchfield without being invited into her living room. Oh, Jesus, Thibodeau, Leroy said when he saw it. That's a damn water moccasin, I think, yes. You think so? Said Deputy Thibodeau. Maybe a diamondback, I see. Ain't got no rattlers. Could be a giant coppermouth. I don't know. It's one damn big snake. I can see, yes, me. Maybe one of them amacambas crawl up through the sewer pipe, bite wormins on the butt, sit and stare up through the toilet, said Leroy. Where they come from, said Deputy Thibodeau. I think Brazil, down south somewhere, I say, said Leroy. That's a long way off to come to bite a woman on her butt, said Deputy Thibodeau. That's why they crawl through the pipes, come out and eat babies at night and crawl back in. How come you got your gun out? Point at me, coon ass, he said. I shoot that big son of a big snake. He come after me, said Deputy Thibodeau. Don't you shoot that gun in my house, said Susan. Only if he come offer to bite on me any, said Deputy Thibodeau. Not in the house, she said. What you gonna do, Mr. Snake Man, now, said Deputy Thibodeau. We got to catch this snake. Put him in a bucket with the lid on, said Leroy. You got a bucket with a lid? Said Deputy Thibodeau. No. You? Said Leroy. Hell no. What I need a bucket with a lid on it for? How come you call me coon ass, you peckerhead? Said Deputy Thibodeau. You got a bucket with a lid on it, Mrs. Houston? Said Leroy. My name is Mrs. Birchfield, and there's a soap bucket with a lid in the laundry room, said Susan. Would you ask Mrs. Houston then if we could borrow that bucket for a little while, said Leroy. I'll go get it, said Susan. You shouldn't call me peckerhead, talk that way in front of the women who work here, said Leroy. What we do now, said Deputy Thibodeau. You take this snake stick, put the catcher on that big snake head, pull him down, put him right in the bucket. I put the lid on then, said Leroy. You the snake man? Been to snake school? You put the snake catcher on his head. I hold the bucket, Deputy Thibodeau said. Ain't what I trained to do. I trained to put the lid on the bucket. After you put him snake in the bucket, yes, said Leroy. I ain't catch no snake, said Deputy Thibodeau. That ain't part of my job. Go ahead, said Leroy. Ain't no problem. Big, easy one to see what you're doing. Put snake catcher right up there. Catch him behind him, head, pull him down. Put him in the bucket. Hell, no, said Deputy Thibodeau. I ain't touched no snake. Here, said Susan Birchfield. Give it to me. Lifted the snake stick up to the curtains, slipped the loop over the snake's head, pulled it down off the drapes to the floor where it sprawled like an overfed pig. God damn, look at that bump in his belly. He done etched something, maybe somebody's baby, said Deputy Thibodeau. No, ain't that big, said Leroy. I think maybe somebody's little dog, maybe cat, yes. It's a mouse, said Susan. It's not big enough to be a dog. I think you're exactly right, Mrs. Ma'am, said Leroy. You better get him in a bucket before he wake up hungry again. Hold him up and put him in. Got him head in, said Leroy. Joe Dean, you put that damn gun down. Put him tail in the bucket I put the lid on. Hell no, said Deputy Thibodeau. I told you once and twice. I ain't touched no snake. Not gonna hurt you, said Leroy. She got his head down. Mrs. Birch head, Mrs. Birchfield, said Susan. Hell head, said Deputy Thibodeau. I shoot him right here in the bucket. Don't you shoot that snake in my bucket in my house, said Susan. You put that gun up. I ain't touched no snake, said Deputy Thibodeau. Here, she said, hold the snake stick. Gave it to Deputy Thibodeau, and the hand without a pistol picked up the snake's body, wound it like a rope coil into the bucket. Put the lid on, Leroy, said Deputy Thibodeau. Put it on now. I can't, Leroy said. Snake stick is in the way. You got to get it off. Get it off, said Deputy Thibodeau. Yeah, you grab that snake's head. Take it off and you. Here, said Susan. Hold still. I'll do it. You be careful now, Mrs. Houston, Leroy said. Don't be letting him bite on you any. I won't, said Susan. Would you please get out of the way, Deputy Thibodeau? I got the lid all ready, said Leroy. When you get him off, we'll be done and finished pretty soon right now. Don't let him get away, said Deputy Thibodeau. Here you bucket, man, said Deputy Thibodeau. We done torn that snake loose like you said we do. Did you shoot that snake, Deputy Thibodeau? Susan said. Oh no, ma'am. I couldn't hit him with no pistol. He done gone off somewhere home out in the wood by himself. I want to apologize for my cousin Leroy. He sometime got a fiffy mouth on him. He don't mean nothing by it. He tell me, he tell you. Tell Mrs. Houston herself, you better wash this bucket out real good for Mrs. Birchwood before you used it. It got a whole lot of snake hair in it. Oh yes, I will do that, said Susan. Indeed. Yes, ma'am, said Deputy Thibodeau. I suspicion you will do about that exactly. And then she said, so she could get it exactly right in his own words, as he might have said it. Without a duel or war, he got in his patrol car to went and left the premise to look for him a hot cup of coffee and somebody to tell all about his day, about that big-a-much one he torn the loose and let him get away. Well, I had enough fun writing that one that several years later, Jan and I had to sell our place in Bandera when her allergies morphed into asthma, and found our little place we sort of call home that we don't live in Mesquite. But being absolutely excellent planners, it took us 3 trips and 4 U-Hauls to get all our stuff moved down here. And on one of the trips back to Bandera, we drove through House Rock Valley. And what I described is what was there that spring. We never made a better turn in our lives to go than to choose to go that way instead of back down on the freeway through Vegas. One of the gorgeous days of my life. But the Thibodeau brothers, just suddenly when I started putting it back together in my head, there they were again. I needed them one more time. Globe Mallow Redux, House Rock Valley. Turn out right there, Jan said. And I said, okay. Pulled off the highway, and Jan got out with her camera. Started taking pictures. Globe mallows spread thigh high across the red desert, thick as Moses' sea, tangled with Pharaoh's chariots. Then another car pulled off, and then another one more. All of us, like children in a field of strawberries, stretching out to the edge of horizon, lapping over into other world. And then the 84 Ford, doors flung open, driver bolting for a ditch and a long bleeding of the lizard, passenger sauntering toward us, eyes agape, neck turning. What y'all looking for? Is there some dead bodies out here? Jan gestured toward the wildflowers, turned back to pleasure. He turned to me. What all y'all taking them pictures of? I said, globe mallow. We've never seen such a profusion. Seen such a what? The flowers, I said. What'd you say they was? Globe mallow. Like marshmallows? He said. And I said, exactly. They're in bloom like we've never seen before. That where marshmallows come from? And I too, now this next line and a half is taken directly from my hero, my other hero, Bill Stafford, in his poem Traveling Through the Dark. And I swerved hard for us all. I thought hard for us all, my only swerving. Okay? That where marshmallows come from? And I too thought hard for us all, my only swerving. And I said, yes. They're in full bloom, and this fall they're going to have fruit spread across this field like high Caprock, Texas cotton on a rain year. Is it worth any much? He said. And I said, yeah, so I've heard. A 4-ounce bag of marshmallows in a grocery store goes for $2, I've been told. And a tow sack full might hold, what, 100 pounds? $2 sacks to the pound. And he said, Jesus Christ, can you pick it? And I said, now on the outside of the fence. Inside is Indian land. Only the Navajo can harvest there, and that's how they get all those new pickups. This side of the fence is BLM and belongs to the American public. You wouldn't be shitting me now. And I said, no, sir. I am a retired professor of English. And I have neither patience nor respect for hyperbolic felicity, that being beneath my dignity. He said, you swear to God? I said, yes, sir. I will swear to whatever God you think you believe in that is exactly what I said. Jan was staring at me with her look. I shrugged in the sunlight, hoping I was bursting into blossom. Looks like it's going to be one hell of a crop this year. But he'd already turned, striding toward his car with purpose and enthusiasm. Leroy, he yelled, where are you at? Get back to the car. I got me something to tell you. Hurry up, goddammit. All right, one more narrative poem. Jan reminded me, I've never read this poem in southern Utah, or at least certainly not in Cedar City, Utah. This is the poem that the Salt Lake Acting Company commissioned me to write for them in 2002 for the Winter Olympics. And I wrote it and they performed it for 3 months. And Huh? Here we go. Haven't read this in a while, so I hope I can pull this one off. The incident at Thompson Swoop. Ollie MacDougall said, all things considered, which he admitted free and clear he hadn't, next time he'd walk or hitchhike. And if that nephew of his by marriage on his wife's side ever set out in his pickup half of a Monday night listening to the radio with that one girl in the front seat running down the batteries until nothing wouldn't crunk that morning, he would separate his habits from his ideas with a 2x4 or a broke-off shovel handle. If he lived to be 104, he'd never figure out how he let that boy talk him into getting on a bicycle with a John Deere t-shirt and a basket on front to bring the groceries back from the store on double S&H green stamps day. He hadn't rode no bicycle for 40 years. But that boy said, oh, Uncle Ollie, it's one of those things you never forget how to do, like swimming or making love to something young and firm. He didn't think to tell him he'd never learned how to do more than dog paddle, and he knew for a fact he'd forgotten anything he ever knew about that other one a long time ago. There he was, wobbling down the road on the way to Piggly Wiggly. Boy said he was too tired to offer to make the town trip for him. It was only 6 miles, mostly flat. He's sure it's going to be okay. And the doctor said he ought to be getting him some exercise anyway. It might have been a red letter day, he said. Except half a mile down the road, here came Coach Bingham from the high school in his fresh-washed car that morning, taking it out to dry and show off. Said, "What's that bicycle you're riding?" Ollie said, "It's my nephew's by marriage on my wife's side." He said, "I can see that. It's a red one. Where are you going to on it?" Ollie said, "To Piggly Wiggly's if I can make it that far before tonight." Coach Bingham said, "Y'all want a tow into town?" Ollie said, "Where?" Coach said, "I got a rope in my trunk. We'll tie it on the bumper and then on them handlebars. I'll give you a pull. You can coast in the whole live way." Ollie said, "Not too fast. I ain't much of a good on one of these no more." He said, "I'll go slow. You hang on and ride." Tied the tow line up, got in. Then, before he started his car, got back out and brought Ollie this coaching whistle on a loop string and put it around his neck and said, "It's going to be just fine. But if something goes wrong, I don't see it in the car mirror blown that whistle, and I'll stop." Got back in. They started off slow, driving to Piggly Wiggly grocery store, pulling Ollie MacDougall on a red bicycle with his 1957 black brand new production model Bonneville Pontiac. The football boosters presented him as an incentive to beat the Hoka, shining from the fresh car wash like diamonds stitched in an Angus bull's butt. I don't know where that came from. It just seemed right at the moment. Is going a squatch better than Ollie MacDougall said he thought he could have expected until Clarence Ivy, in his pickup, he had put a new 357 engine in with cherry bomb mufflers, comes down the road late to get home, in horrible trouble with his wife because him and his boy, who had just turned 8 years old at 1 minute after midnight that morning in the 3rd grade, named Jerry Don Ivy that fall, were supposed to go to the store and buy her meadow lark butter to make pie crust with while she finished boiling dewberries. but heard down to Adolph's Cafe on the way the news that Artie Gill that morning caught a bass, 9 pounds and 12 ounces, over the Justusburg Lake. He said he had to see with his own eyes before he would believe it. And since he had his poles in the truck bed, maybe he had cast out a time or two and let Jerry Don see if it was any catfish biting on the bottom, which he thought was a real, good idea to celebrate his birthday with, both catching fish, almost a tow sack full, 2 good-sized bass, and 1 catfish Clarence had to help him on, upwards of 4 pounds. He thought he was pretty sure about. Never did see Artie Gill's bass, but they were all talking about it, so it must have been true, more or less at least. And then he remembered that butter. Said, "Uh-oh, Jerry Don, we better be getting back home. Your mama's going to have her drawers up her crack. We don't get to store." Went to his pickup. It was a potential tragedy. Wouldn't turn over. All the electric flat line, had to follow it down the wires until he found a fuse blown dead. Piddled through his jockey box to see if anything he had might work. Only thing that fit was a .22 bullet out of his pistol. He put it in and said, "Well, I'll be," when it worked and the pickup started. Pulled out and drove to town 55 miles an hour as an example to Jerry Don of the law of the land, until he came up on Coach Bingham. He had played football for almost 10 years, pulling Ollie MacDougall on a red bicycle with a towing rope. Came up beside him with the off window down, racked his cherry bomb mufflers, hollered, "Flip a booger on him, Jerry Don." Just at the same time that boy pulled one loose, and he did. Right on the hood of Coach's shiny black car. Said, "I got him, Daddy." Coach Bingham yelled, "Damn you!" Clarence Ivy said, "Not if you can't catch me." Shifted up to second and peeled rubber. Ollie MacDougall said, "Oh no." How could it be? But just at that second, Deputy Sheriff Junior Shepherd, down by the 4-mile bridge cut off under the big shade tree, taking his turn showing Maudie Faye Rayburn how the inside of the new 2-year-old patrol car looked, heard those cherry bomb mufflers, said, "By God, I bet that's Clarence Ivy in his pickup." She said, "Where's he at?" Heard those tires squalling, said, "By God, I'll bet he's racing that pickup." She said, "Racing it where?" Set up in time to see Clarence go by on the road like it was Indianapolis. Jumped over the seat back, took out the microphone hollering, "Sheriff Floyd! Sheriff Floyd, set up a roadblock. It's Clarence Ivy coming into town past 4 Mile going 80 miles an hour. I'll be in pursuit." Said Maudie Faye, "You have to get out. I'll come back and get you pretty soon." She said, "Get out where?" Sheriff Floyd called back on the radio, said, "Come again, Junior?" Here come Coach Bingham, wide open in his shiny black 57 Pontiac Bonneville, honking like a skein of geese leading in the second coming. "Sheriff Floyd! Sheriff Floyd!" he hollered. "It's Coach Bingham going..." "Wait a minute. Lord God Almighty, it's Ollie MacDougall on a red bicycle, 90 miles an hour, blowing a whistle, trying to pass." "Get out, Maudie Faye. You have to get out now." "Right here," she said, leaned over the seat and opened the back door, pushed her out on the ground. "I have to go to work," he said, "right now." She said, "You son of a bye," he said. In the office, Sheriff Floyd said, "Oh Lord, I'm afraid Maudie Faye might have unscrewed Junior's brains out this time." went out to his patrol car to go see. 5 miles outside town, 2 miles outside town, Coach Bingham caught up to Clarence Ivy, sat on his bumper, horn wide open, Ollie MacDougall blowing his whistle like a jet airplane, and Junior Shepherd coming off a gravel road onto the pavement with his red lights and sirens screaming. Maybe it was the heat inside that pickup cab or an act of God just then. That .22 bullet went off loud as a stick of dynamite tore into the pickup seat up to the ceiling right through Clarence Ivy's left testicle. Jerry Don Ivy said he couldn't remember exactly what it was his daddy said. It all happened quick and the noise was loud. He remembered the pickup going into the ditch and him thinking, oh, Daddy, Mama's going to be real mad. Clarence Ivy's pickup bounced off the road into the right-hand borrow pit, spun twice, jumped the offside cleft, high-centered with the rear wheels spinning loose gravel 45 feet back onto the pavement, cherry bomb mufflers backfiring like 4th of July. Coach Bingham side slid left axle deep, then sank halfway into Thompson Slough up to his doors before he could imagine what happened. Bellowing like a tornado, said he had to crawl through the window out on the car top to see where he was at. Ollie MacDougall's red bicycle turned into a launch skyrocket over Coach Bingham's Bonneville Pontiac, 50 feet out in the muck before they ceased partnership. That whistle blowing so hard his face looked like 2 muskmelons stuck on his cheeks. Bicycle landed upside down in a juniper front wheel, a windmill spinning like an Olympic champion. Remember why I wrote this? Got to get that in there. Like an Olympic champion, Ollie belly flopped in gumbo, slid 20 more feet up onto Thule grass, rolled over thinking he was blind for life or dead in black hell until he wiped off the mud. Not a single bone broken, not even a bloody nose for a souvenir. He had to pull the whistle up by the string from where he swallowed it. Deputy Sheriff Junior Shepherd screamed on the scene 1 minute and 56 seconds later, 82 miles an hour, locked his brakes and skittered sideways a 1/4 mile down the pavement, sank the front end of his patrol car into the slough, crawled out the back window and hollered, "Y'all all under arrest. Don't you move, any of you. I got a reinforcements coming." Cletus Graves puttered up from his place with Maudie Faye Rayburn on his tractor fender, picked up on the road. If she sworn, she wouldn't never tell nobody. Jerry Don Ivy screeching like a banshee when his daddy pulled down his pants and saw blood all over his pecker, down his legs, said, "Oh God, I'm bleeding to death," holding his privates fainted dead away. Sheriff Red Floyd pulled up, sat in his car, looking out at the slough. Didn't even recognize Ollie MacDougall, so covered up with mud. Said the only thing he could think of was to wonder, what in the hell was a bicycle doing with its tires spinning upside down in a juniper tree? And how come Maudie Faye Rayburn's wearing Junior Shepherd's policeman's hat when the radio came on? And the dispatcher, Sheila Morris, said, "Sheriff Floyd, it's Darlene Ivy on the line, saying her husband and son ain't come home. They supposed to be bringing her some Metal Art butter." Junior Shepherd hollering, "Y'all all under arrest." Coach Bingham yelling, "That little bugger flipped a booger on my car." Ollie MacDougall asking, "Am I dead?" Sheriff Floyd said, "Oh, Lord, Sheila, you better tell Darlene to go get in her car and start it up. Clarence and her boy been involved in an incident at Thompson Slough. He was supposed to be getting me meadowlark butter, Darlene Ivy said. Mama, said Jerry Don Ivy. Ma'am, said Sheriff Floyd. I just washed that car all clean, said Coach Bingham. My car wasn't crunk and I needed groceries, said Ollie McDougal. Mama, said Jerry Don, I can't make no pie crust without butter, said Darlene. Ma'am, your husband's in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, said Sheriff Floyd. They was going 90 miles an hour, at least I will swear to it, said Junior Shepherd. Mama, said Jerry Don. Did he get my butter? Said Darlene. Now look what all happened, said Coach Bingham. They're all under arrest, said Junior Shepherd. Here, take this, you horse's ass, said Maudie Fay, giving back his hat. Mama, said Jerry Don. What? Darlene, said Jerry Don. Mama, Daddy shot off his balls, said Jerry Don. Jerry Don, I wish you wouldn't talk like that, said Darlene. Ma'am, said Sheriff Floyd, where is my meadowlark butter, said Darlene. Ollie, did you flown that red bicycle up in that tree upside down like that, said Maudie Fay. Junior, would you go get this woman her meadowlark butter? Was what Sheriff Floyd said that got Darlene Ivy calmed down and Jerry Don in the car to take him home so the winch truck could get close enough to pull Coach Bingham's Bonneville Pontiac out of the slough and Clarence Ivy's pickup off the Barra Pit Ridge paid Arliss Jamerson $5 extra county money to wade out and get Ollie McDougal's nephew by marriage's red bicycle out of the juniper tree upside down. Ollie said he wouldn't never ride it no more again, ever. Double S&H green stamps or not. Washed off his face best he could in slough topwater. Cletus Graves went on along on his tractor after nothing else was left to see. Junior Shepherd offered Maudie Fay a ride into town. She said she would rather walk. Sheriff Floyd loaded the red bicycle in the trunk of the patrol car. Ollie and Maudie Fay Rayburn together in the back seat drove them to McDougal's where they both got out. Maudie Fay said she suspected she would be fine for tonight at least. On the way, found out on the radio, Clarence Ivy lost one nut. They'd have to keep him in the hospital overnight for a couple of days, but wasn't otherwise mutilated or incapacitated. And Deputy Sheriff Junior Shepherd knocked on the door. When she answered, it said, "Here's your butter, ma'am." Sheriff Floyd, Sheila Morris said from the dispatch office, "It's Darlene Ivy on the line wondering if anybody knows when Clarence will be coming home, and if anybody thought to get that tow sack of fish out of her husband's pickup and bring it by to her house so she can fix some happy birthday supper for her little boy Jerry Don to go with her fresh dewberry pie." And I don't want to leave you there. I'll close with this one tonight. This is a poem from an earlier book, from News from Down to the Cafe. The song E.U. Washburn, the grave tender heard while tending roses over the grave of Philemon and Bacchus Rojas. There were characters in a different book who died on Easter Sunday morning together in bed, and they wanted to be buried exactly as they spent their first night together of marriage, in the same coffin, in the same grave, with the one tombstone. And so the people buried them that way and got roses out of their garden and planted them on the sides of the tombstone, and they formed a bow over the grave that we all swore bloomed every Easter Sunday. This poem has three different mythological references. The first is in the title, the myth from Ovid, Baucis and Philemon, the Thracian peasants who entertained Apollo. And I baptized them and made them Hispanic and gave them Texas royalty. Second is 1 Corinthians 13:13. As much as I don't particularly care that much for the self-proclaimed Apostle Paul, he got it right when he said, there abideth these three: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And he's talking about the three seats of learning in the body: the liver, augury; the brain, memory; and the heart, love. I give you that one, Paul. If you hadn't written 1 Corinthians 14, I might give you more. And then from one of my favorite passages from Dante, Cianullo amor amato amor perdona me prese del costui piacerse forte, che comodera no me abandona. And my very best Tex-Mex translation, which just doesn't come up to the mark, but love which absolves no loved one from the act of loving, seized us so strongly that as thou seest, even now, even here in hell, it will not abandon us. Wish I liked the rest of the poem as well as I like those three lines. E.U. Washburn was mute most of his life. And he tends the graves, and he believes he can hear them speak. And he knows they can hear him if they want to, but they mostly don't. He heard this over the grave. Is it true that love is God? She asked. And he said, yes. Oh, yes. That is true, my love, but you must try and remember not to believe it that way. And then, do you believe, she asked? And he said, yes. I believe beyond death in believing. That faith one can never fully give up. There will always be doubt. You must also remember to hope. And that in our language, to wait and to hope are one. Espera, querida. Espera. And then, what should I hope for? She asked. And he said, with all your heart, you must hope that love will keep believing in you. Have faith in that alone, for only then will this world, as we believe in it, continue to exist. And that is God, and that is enough. And that's enough.